Welcome to the show. While you probably don't think about it while you're on the road, we are all beneficiaries of the services provided by the Department of Transportation. But as populations grow and technology changes, managing the state's transportation assets becomes very complex. Here to talk with us a little bit about how to keep Maryland moving, we're pleased to welcome Deputy Transportation Secretary, Mr. Jim Ports. Jim, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit about the scope of what your department does.
Okay, well, the Department of Transportation is a pretty large department within state government. It's a little over 11,000 employees, and we do everything from BWI, Thurgood Marshall Airport, and Martin State Airport, to the MTA, Mass Transit Administration, as well as Helen Dillard Bentley, Port of Baltimore. We also work with State Highways, State Highway Administration, and the Motor Vehicle Administration. The Secretary is also the chairman of what we call MDTA, which is the Maryland Transportation Authority, which does the bridges and tunnels.
Well, it certainly is complex.
It's a lot going on in the Department of Transportation.
Yeah, I can tell.
So if I may ask, and one area that's very important to us here in Western Maryland and Hagerstown especially is the maintenance work and widening of I-81. So really, in terms of priority, in terms of funding, what does that project look like, and what some of the 800-pound gorillas in the room, like the bridge over the Potomac, which obviously is going to be a huge investment, what are the thoughts from the department's standpoint on those?
So obviously, I-81 is very important to the Department of Transportation and the Hogan administration. It has not just a state significance, but a regional significance, as well as the entire East Coast. And, you know, Secretary Ron and I were just down out at the Bob O'Mac plant, and we learned from like Bowman Trucking and others how important that corridor is. And so right now we're advancing improvements on I-81. There's, as you may know, there's 4 phases. We're currently in phase 1, which is from US 11 in West Virginia to north of Maryland 63. That's LaPans Road, and we actually have crews out there working right now under the bridges. You won't see them from the roadways, obviously, but they're out there working. It's a $93 million project, and we're widening a half-mile on each side of the bridge. West Virginia, as you may know, is investing $39.8 million to widen their side. We're actually doing the work, but they are funding it. And we anticipate completing this phase in 2020. So it's an exciting project for you. It's an exciting project for Maryland Department of Transportation.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, I had a chance over the years to work with a lot of transportation secretaries. We appreciate you being here in the Hogan administration and what they've done so far with Interstate 81. I know you have different priorities. Other than the priorities in the state of Maryland that we could get hung up on right now, maybe you could give us some Western Maryland priorities and tell us whether or not in those priorities there's consideration to a tower being located at the Hagerstown Regional Airport, which is tremendously needed because of the safety factor, and for also knowing that there's been new development out there that the developer put in the base, a 20-foot base for setting a new tower on it. So what can you tell us about Western Maryland priorities and specifically address the tower, if you can, at the Hagerstown Regional Airport?
Okay, so there's a couple of phases to that question. One is what's important out here. So as I mentioned, we do the airport, we do the port, mass transit, et cetera, et cetera. And all of these projects are important. We have a gentleman that comes out here all the time, Hashish, who works very closely with the Hagerstown Airport. When I was in the Ehrlich administration, we worked very closely with the Hagerstown Airport, and we're going to continue to do so. The governor is very focused on a balanced, integrated transportation system throughout the state of Maryland to benefit all Marylanders. And so what we do is we work very closely with the local governments. We get a priority letter, as you may know, in around April. And then we do the Consolidated Transportation Program tours, which we just did last week here in Hagerstown to talk about all the projects. I can't remember the exact number of funding that we have, but I know it's over $200,000. It's like $264,000 or something like that going into Hagerstown this year. And so we're always looking for ways to improve. We're also working with different airlines, and there may be some other announcements soon with other airlines coming in to Hagerstown. So we're always looking for those opportunities to help the local governments boost their economic development, as well as look for ways to partner with them with the state government. As far as the tower project goes, I'm not specifically familiar with that project, but I'm sure that we can get some of those details for you from Hashish.
Okay. So, talk to me a little bit about toll roads in Maryland. I mean, there's some. Is that something that's going to expand? How would that work in a more rural county like Western Maryland or the Eastern Shore?
So obviously we have the Maryland Transportation Authority, and they're in charge of all of our toll roads. So all the tunnels, all the bridges, Bay Bridge, every bridge that's tolled or every tunnel is tolled, as well as the ICC. And one of the projects that I was very integral in the previous administration, meaning the Ehrlich administration, was the I-95 express toll lanes. And the reason for that, as well as like the ICC, is you're trying to look for that balance of federal funds, state funds, and possibly tolls to help fund these major projects. They are huge projects that cost millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions in some case. So you're looking to offset that in any way possible. So right now there's no toll roads that I know of that we're looking at currently. We are looking for different ways to do I-270, for example. We're looking for very creative ways. Secretary Ron, through Governor Hogan, has announced that we're going to give $100 million to a firm that can move the most people the furthest and the fastest. And so we're looking for innovation, so it could be technology or other ways to move traffic, including autonomous vehicles. And we have a work group for that too.
So just to back up for a second as a follow-on question, you mentioned about the hundreds of millions of dollars, and I have no trouble believing that. Looking at a project, all four phases of a project like Interstate 81, do you have any idea what the total number might be? And I'm not going to hold you to this, but is there any estimates? Are there any estimates? And I know they're rough, but.
So as I mentioned, there's 93 million just for phase one, okay? And another 38, almost 39 million on the West Virginia side. So you're already talking about getting close to $150 million just for phase one.
Right, and we're only to Williamsport.
Correct. So I'm not sure the exact total number. I'd have to get some folks at SHA to try and give me that. But we did put the $5 million up in case we get a fast lane grant for the study for all the rest of the phases.
Okay.
So through that study, we will learn more about what the total cost of that road structure will be.
I'm going to take one more follow-up on that if I
Sure.
can. The fast lane grant. The governor was pinged a little bit about not applying for funds. My understanding was we weren't ready to apply for those funds. Can you shed some light on where we were in that process and why we didn't apply previously?
Sure. So think about it this way. It's called a fast lane grant. So it had specific parameters for basically shovel-ready projects. So what the federal government does is when they want to move projects quickly, they put parameters on there for obligation of funds and for you to have time to completely spend the funds. Well, the project's not ready yet, so we could not meet those parameters. It's almost as if I said to you all here at the panel, hey, I have $10,000 for any one of you that has a roofer under contract to put a new roof on your house right now. Yeah. Okay? Well, none of you probably have a roofer on contract right now.
Not at the moment.
So that's right. You're right. So think about it in terms like that the parameters that were set by the federal government were just too quick, fast lane, right?
Got it.
For us to react in time. We have heard, however, that there may be a second round, and we are gearing up, and that's why we dedicate the $5 million for the study. as well as we're trying to get the engineering and design work done as quickly as possible so that we can be ready and hopefully fit those parameters. If not, we'll still be ready for the next phase as they roll things out, whenever they do that.
Excellent.
Now, or you got another question, Danielle? on that?
If you don't mind, I'm going to just rewind a little bit since we were talking about Western Maryland and the focus there and 81. Here in Washington County, we see Interstate 70 and Interstate 81 and that junction as quite an economic driver in terms of manufacturing, retail, entertainment, lots of employers. So I'm interested to know, how does the state of Maryland view that juncture in terms of importance, I guess?
So, as I mentioned, we work with the local governments on what their priorities are. And this is one of the priorities because it's economic development. That area, well, safety and economic development, I should say,
Sure.
and moving traffic and congestion. So we, as far as 170 goes, we have a study, the 170 interchange improvements concept at Maryland 65 at Sharpsburg Pike to support economic development and safety, as I just mentioned, throughout Washington County. And we have some other resurfacing projects that are under construction right now on I-70, one on the south side of Hagerstown and the other in western Washington County. The total investment is $5.5 million.
Wow.
So the project on the south side of Hagerstown will be complete in the summer of 2017, and the project on the western side of Washington County will be completed this fall. So we are making movements. I mean, we're doing some bridge projects, about $14 million. We're doing some drainage improvements, almost $5 million. We're widening I-70 to 6 lanes from Frederick County line at I-68. And so there's a lot going on out here in Western Maryland, and I'm sure you're going to see much more as Governor Hogan gets around the state. He loves rural Maryland, and it shows. But keep in mind that, you know, we've been here about a year and a half, and everybody wants all the projects done today.
Right.
They've been on the books for decades. And Governor Hogan's good, but he's not a magician. So we are getting things done, and like I said, we're working with local government. So you're going to see a lot of changes out here in Western Maryland. And I mean, Governor Hogan's coming out here tomorrow,
Right.
to hold his cabinet meeting. I think that shows a true commitment to not just Washington County, but the whole region of Western Maryland.
Well, thank you so much for answering that, and I know myself as well, the rest of the panel has a lot more questions for you. So stay tuned, we've got a lot more to talk about. We'll be back in 3 minutes.